Did I try and film this once before? Yes. Did that video work out? No. So, a few days late, by that I mean like a week, this is my 2023 reading wrap up. Okay, so I got all the books like lined up over here. I don't know if you can tell, it's on my bed. But first book that I started with this year was The Song of Achilles. I think I started off this year with a banger because I loved this book. I think I might want to like reread it. That's how much I want to like annotate it and everything because I annotate it. I wasn't really into it. I'm not really into it, but this one I loved and I would love to annotate this one. So this is what I started my year off with. The next book that I read was Breach of Peace by Daniel Green, a little fantasy YouTuber that I started liking this year. So I read his little novella thing. I have his Rebels Creed 2. I still need to read it though, but I read this little novella. Pretty cool. The next book that I read was Twisted Love. Me and my friend decided to pick up this book and we devoured this one. The next book, my absolute baby, my favorite book ever. My favorite maybe romance book ever right now. He can't do no wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. Yes. Next one was Twisted Hate. That's all. I'm just gonna put that one right there. Lastly, the last book, Twisted Lies, the thickum that it is. Read this one after it. Read them all. The next book that I was like reading throughout a little bit was Milk and Honey, a little poetry book. This one I did tab a little bit. This was a reread for me. I read this back in high school and I had it like tapped out and I was like, okay, I'm gonna reread it, see how I feel about it now, what resonates with me, and I got rid of like just probably like a third of the tabs that I actually had beforehand. So yeah. Next one was Promises and Pomegranates. This one I did tab a little bit. This was definitely my year of romances and dark romances. So I really liked this one, but I also really liked like the story of Persephone and Hades. So having like a retelling of it was really cool. Okay, the next 5 books I guess you can call was the first 5 in Chainsaw Man. I read them back to back. Yeah, there's not really much to say about these. I mean obviously the manga series has not finished yet and I have not finished what has been given out yet, but I did read the first 5 as of this point. The next series that I read, because I'm just gonna keep it all together, was the Shadow and Bone. I have a little box set that I got for Christmas. These ones pretty quickly. I think I demolished these ones along with like Twisted Lies. Demolished them. So I mean I finished those books pretty quickly. So I had those 3. The next one I read was the number 6 of Chainsaw Man. The next book that I read, I think I read it in like 2 days. I was kicking my feet, I was giggling. I loved this book. That was Icebreaker. I freaking loved it. I have Wildfire like right there. I think it was right there. One of those like books. Either one of those 2. I demolished this one and I'm ready to read that one. But I know that some people don't really like the how it's like not at the campus. So I don't know, but I'm really excited about the next book too. But this one, I love this book. The next book that I read was number 7 of Chainsaw Man. Kind of weird pattern of when I was reading them, but I think I was reading these in between like reading those when I needed like little breaks from little romances and I wanted to get back to the story. But yeah, I got number 7. Next series that my friend that I read the Twisted series with, she got me these books and we read them together also, which was the Ravenhood Cycle. And I had a lot of emotions going through these books. I loved them. I was annoyed. I hated them. I wanted to throw them across the room. I was annoyed again. Loved it. Then annoyed again. Then loved it. That whole cycle. But yeah, I read all 3 of these books. Got that done. Okay, the next book that I read was Fourth Wing. I almost bought this when they had the sprayed edges and then I was like, let me save money. Let me put it back. The one time I actually want to save money. I put it back. So now I know how Spirit Edges. So yay! But I read this one. I loved it. Again, probably top 5. Really liked this one. Next series that I read was Dreamland Billionaire. I went 1, 2, 3. Obviously, I think this one is definitely my favorite though. I liked all of them, but this one, I think this was my favorite. I think it goes this one, then Final Offer, then the fine print. That's probably my order. But I did read all 3 of these. So yeah. The next book that I read that took me a little bit of time to get through was Frankenstein. And I did tap some of the areas that I did really like. This was during October that I was doing my read of it. I was trying to do all like spooky-ish, gothic, horror, classic, somewhat books. So I really wanted to get through this one, and it took me like maybe a week or so because of how, like, I guess you can call it dense. I don't know if that would be like the correct word, but you know how like classics, this is like a gothic classic, how it could be difficult to get through. So but yeah, I read this. The next book that I read was Corrupted Chaos. I'm pretty sure I seen this on either TikTok or Instagram in like a little like what's one sentence out of like what one scene out of the whole entire book that's out of context, and I was like, I'm gonna read that. So I read this. I'm pretty sure it's like the 2nd or 3rd in the interconnected series, which I didn't know, and I usually like going in turn with the books, but this one I just decided to read. I was like, whatever. The next book that I read, that me and my friend read together, was Haunting Adelaide. This was something else, man. I mean, this was like my first year of like dark romances. This was something else. Next book that I read, also during Halloweenish time, was Carmilla. This was like a really good classic, gothic classic, and I really like vampires in there. Was like, I haven't read Dracula, but I know that this is like recommended to read with like Dracula, or like it's like another like vampire classic story. So I really wanted to get through this. It was pretty small. The next book that I read, because I wasn't over my hockey romances, was Lee Side. I fucking ate this up. I ate this up. So I mean, I could see how it's like not like a good book. I don't care. I loved it. The next book that I read that I was waiting, I like literally took like a week, 5 days, 4 or 5 days off of reading because I didn't want to start a book. My phone ran out of storage. Okay, continuing. As I was saying, I wanted to read this book when it came out, so I waited a few days and then I started reading this one, and yeah, I'm not gonna say anything about it. If you read it, you know the ending. I did think that like it was a little bit like long, or like there was like parts in the book that I thought like, oh, the book could end here, and then it just kept on going, and I was like, okay, kind of lost momentum, I guess. Next book that I read was Hooked. I want to get into her books because I've been hearing a lot of, or I follow her on Instagram, and I know like everything she's going through, so I want to like at least support her somehow. And so I'm gonna buy her books and read them. This was the first one that I read. This is the only one that I have, but I do want to continue. I heard that it gets like better after this, and like honestly, it was my favorite book. But I also heard that it gets better, so I do want to get it to continue. I decided to go for a little cozy fantasy because it was like November-ish. So I did read Legends of Lantes. Definitely not my speed. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was very good. But definitely not my speed. I'm like more at the point of like wanting high fantasy. So, yeah, not bad though. Next, I read When in Rome. This was so freaking cute. I cannot get over it. I read this in like 2 days. Absolutely loved it. I thought it was so adorable, and I liked how there wasn't really no like 3rd act breakup, which I honestly think is super annoying. But yeah, I liked this one, and I liked how it was like, I was surprised that there was no like smut. And this is my first like closed, I guess in a while, this is my first like closed door romances, but I really liked it. And then I think that's when I got the special edition of Fourth Wing, so I did read the last like what 2-3 chapters that they added in Xaden's point of view, so I don't know if you like count that as a book, but I did get this and I did read those little extra chapters. Next, I read the famous Divine Rivals. I thought it was freaking adorable. I'm currently reading Ruthless Vow right now. Next, I read Six of Crows. I think this was so much better than Shadow and Bone, and like I heard that a lot, but I really did not think like this is so much different, and this one resonated with me so much more, and I really liked it. One of the 2 books this year that made me cry was Crooked Kingdom. She was sad as fuck. Sad. I ate it up. I literally was in the living room reading, at my grandparents' house reading, literally driving, reading. Not really. I was reading this like all the time. I was trying to finish this because this was so good. I read Circe. I was trying to finish off the year with this because I started with Song of Achilles, so I wanted to end up with Circe. I really liked this one too. I think it was very different than Song of Achilles, but I did like this one a lot more, and I liked the story of Circe and it, like going through everything she went through and her life lessons and stuff like that. That she's like, or I guess that, yeah, like her life and like how you can like learn from her lessons. And then the last book that I read this year was Brewer Prince. I read this in 2 days. It was my days off, so I mean, if that kind of helps, but I did read these in like 2 days. I thought it was pretty good, not bad. I mean, for like a short mafia romance, I think it was really good, and I know like the other books in the series is pretty good too, so I will probably continue this. I don't know when, because I have so many books on there that I need to read, but I will definitely get through it sometime. And then a book that I didn't mention that I did read early on in the year was Pleasure of the Night by Sylvia Day. I already did it. I hated the book. Absolutely hated it. No plot, just like sex. I was there for the, just wanted like a smutty book, but I want plot too. There was like nothing. It was probably my worst book that I read this year. Yeah, that is all the books that I read in 2023. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day.